The black car appeared. It was long, it was silent, and it had no business being on this street. It pulled up to the curb outside a small restaurant in Houston's Third Ward, the kind of restaurant that had mismatched chairs and a handwritten menu on the wall and the best jollof rice within 200 miles. Inside, a waitress was wiping down tables. She was 26 years old. She had flour on her apron and hot sauce on her sleeve, and she was humming a song her mother used to sing. She didn't see the car, but the dishwasher did. He was standing at the kitchen sink. His hands were wet. His heart was pounding because he knew that car, and he knew that in the next 5 minutes, everything he had built over the last 30 days, every feeling, every moment, every lie he had told to stay close to this woman was about to come crashing down. And his name was Zane Archer. His father was worth $2.4 billion. And he had just spent 30 days washing dishes for minimum wage, falling in love with a woman who had no idea who he was. But here's the thing, nobody knew. She was hiding something too. And when both secrets came out in that tiny restaurant on that ordinary Tuesday evening, neither of them would ever be the same. Now, if you believe that love finds you in the last place you'd ever look, stay with me. And because this story, it starts with a billionaire's ultimatum, and it ends with something money could never buy. He had 30 days, and on the first morning, he almost quit. Days before the black car arrived, Zane Archer sat across from his father in the penthouse office of Archer Capital Group, 40th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. The Houston skyline stretched below them, like something that belonged to them because it did parts of it. Anyway, Victor Archer was 61 years old. He had built his empire from a single shipping container in Tema. Now he owned real estate across 4 states, hotels, office towers, a private equity fund that made other billionaires nervous. He was not a cruel man, but he was not a soft one either. "You're 27 years old," Victor said. He didn't look up from his desk. "You have 2 degrees, a trust fund, a penthouse, a car that costs more than most people's houses." Zane shifted in his chair, and he knew where this was going. "And yet, you have done nothing. That's not fair? Tell me one thing you've built, one thing you've earned, one thing that didn't have my name attached to it." Silence. "I'm not asking to be cruel, Zane. I'm asking because your mother would have asked." That was the card Victor always played. Serena, Zane's mother. She had died when Zane was 19. Cancer, quick, brutal. The kind that takes everything before you even understand what's happening. Serena Archer was the opposite of her husband. Where Victor was steel, Serena was sunlight. She volunteered at shelters. She cooked for neighbors. She told Zane every night before bed, "It doesn't matter what you have. It matters who you are when you have nothing." Zane loved his mother more than anyone on earth. And his father knew it. "Your mother worried about you." Victor continued before she passed. "She told me something." She said, "Victor, don't let our money make him blind. Make sure he sees people, really sees them." Zane's jaw tightened. "I see people. You see menus. You see VIP lists. You see bottle service." Victor leaned forward. "When was the last time you had a conversation with someone who didn't know your last name?" Zane didn't answer. Victor opened a drawer. He pulled out an envelope and slid it across the desk. Inside that envelope is an address, a small restaurant in Third Ward. You're going to walk in tomorrow morning that you're going to ask for a job. Any job they'll give you. You're joking. You will not use the Archer name. You will not mention this company. You will not drive your car or wear your watch or flash a single thing that tells them who you are. You will work there for 30 days. 30 days doing what? Whatever they need, dishes, mopping, taking out trash, whatever the lowest job is, that's yours. Zane stared at his father, and if I refuse, Victor's eyes were steady. Then you are cut off permanently. No trust fund, no apartment, no position at Archer Capital, nothing. You wouldn't try me? The two men looked at each other across the desk. The Houston skyline glittered behind them, billions of dollars in glass and steel. Zane picked up the envelope. 30 days, he said. 30 days. And Zane, what? Don't just survive it, learn something. Your mother would have wanted that. Zane stood up. He walked to the door. He turned back. Why this restaurant? Why not a hotel or a warehouse? Or because I chose it? That's all you need to know. Zane left the office. He didn't see his father's face after the door closed. He didn't see the way Victor's hand shook as he opened a desk drawer and pulled out an old photograph. A photograph of a woman standing outside a small restaurant in Third Ward, smiling, holding a wooden spoon. The woman in the photograph was not Serena Archer. It was someone Serena had loved like a sister, someone who had been gone for years. But Victor wasn't sending Zane to meet a ghost. He was sending him to meet her daughter. Some people leave to find themselves. She stayed and lost everything except her mother's dream, years before Zane Archer walked through her door. Nora Sinclair sat on a hospital bed in Houston Methodist and held her mother's hand. Nora Sinclair was 49 years old. She had been sick for months. She had fought. She had prayed. She had refused to close her restaurant even when she could barely stand. Nora, Ilara whispered. Her voice was thin, like paper about to tear. Promise me something. Anything, Mama? Don't let the kitchen go cold. Nora's eyes filled. She knew what her mother meant. The restaurant, Aunt Lila's kitchen, the tiny place in Third Ward that Ilara had built from nothing. The place where she had fed the neighborhood, where she had turned leftover ingredients into meals that made strangers feel like family. It was called Aunt Lila's kitchen because of Lila Bowie, Ilara's best friend and business partner who had helped her start it. Lila had gone back to Ghana years earlier for health reasons. The restaurant was Ilara's alone now, and it was everything. I promise, Mama. Ilara squeezed her hand. And take care of your brother. He's only 15. He needs you. I will. And Nora. Yes. Mama, live. Don't just survive. Live. Ilara died on a Wednesday morning. Nora was 19 years old. She had just been accepted to Howard University. Full scholarship pre-med. The letter was sitting on her kitchen table at home. She had planned to tell her mother that morning. She never got the chance. The funeral was small. The restaurant was closed for 1 week. The neighborhood left flowers at the door. And then Nora had to make a choice. Howard University was waiting, and a full ride, a future, everything her mother had worked for. But Theo was 15. Their father had left when Theo was 2. There was no family in Houston, no aunts, no uncles, no one to take a scared 15-year-old boy and make sure he ate breakfast and did his homework and didn't fall through the cracks. And the restaurant, if Nora left, it would close forever. Everything her mother had built, every recipe, every memory gone. Nora sat at her mother's kitchen table, and the scholarship letter in one hand, her mother's recipe book in the other. She chose the recipe book. She called Howard the next morning, declined the scholarship. The admissions officer asked her 3 times if she was sure. "I'm sure," Nora said. Her voice didn't shake, but her hands did. She reopened Aunt Lila's kitchen weeks later. She was 19 years old. She couldn't cook half the menu. She burned the first 3 batches of jollof rice. She cried in the walk-in cooler on the 4th night because a customer yelled at her about the wait time. But she kept going. She taught herself her mother's recipes, one by one, night after night, tasting, adjusting, failing, trying again. She hired Jax, a young cook from the neighborhood who needed a job as badly as she needed help. She trained him together. They rebuilt the menu. She enrolled Theo in the school, packed his lunches, checked his homework, walked him to the bus stop every morning before opening the restaurant. She put every penny she earned back into 2 things: the restaurant and Theo's education. She kept nothing for herself. Years later, Theo was 22, a senior at Rice University, full academic scholarship, studying engineering. And Nora was 26, still at the restaurant, still wearing her mother's apron, still humming her mother's songs. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was just what you do. You take care of what matters, even when it costs you everything. That's who Nora Sinclair was. And she had no idea that a billionaire's son was about to walk through her door and turn her quiet life upside down. He lasted 4 hours before he wanted to quit, and she gave him exactly 0 sympathy. Zane showed up at Aunt Lila's kitchen on a Monday. He was wearing the most casual clothes he owned, which meant a $300 plain white t-shirt and designer jeans he had tried to make look old by rolling them at the cuffs. He looked ridiculous, and Nora told him so. "You're here for the dishwashing job?" She looked him up and down from behind the counter, flour on her apron, hair pulled back, no makeup, not trying to impress anyone. Yes. You ever washed dishes before?" "How hard can it be?" She almost laughed. "Almost. It's minimum wage, 12-hour shifts. Lunch is free, but you eat what we eat. No complaints, no drama. You in?" "I'm in." "Good." The sink is in the back. The hot water takes minutes to warm up. Don't burn yourself on the fryer grease. And don't touch the jollof rice pot ever for any reason. Why not? Because I said so. That's why. Zane walked to the back. The kitchen was small and the sink was massive. There were already dishes stacked from the morning prep. He turned on the water. It was cold. He waited. Minutes, still cold. Jiggle the pipe underneath. A voice called from the stove. Jax the cook, big smile, bandana on his head, moving between 3 pans at once like a man playing an instrument. The pipe. Yeah, man. "Welcome to 3rd Ward Plumbing." Zane knelt down, jiggled the pipe. Lukewarm water sputtered out. By the afternoon, his back was aching and his hands were pruned. His shirt was soaked. He had broken 1 plate, and Nora had taken the cost out of his first day's pay without blinking. "That plate was older than you," she said. "Treat everything in this kitchen with respect." It slipped. "Then hold tighter." She wasn't mean, but she wasn't gentle either. She treated him the way she treated everyone, with honesty, with directness, with absolutely no special treatment. And something about that fascinated Zane. Not because nobody had ever treated him this way his whole life. People had been careful with him, polite, deferential, because of his last name, because of his father's money. Every conversation had an angle. Every smile had a strategy. Nora didn't have a strategy. She had a restaurant to run. At noon, the lunch rush hit. The tiny restaurant filled with people from the neighborhood, construction workers, nurses, bus drivers, students. Zane watched Nora work. She knew every regular by name. Mr. Cordy, your usual extra plantain today. You look tired. Jax, table 4 needs more pepper. Real pepper, not the tourist pepper. Zane, dishes are backing up. Move. She moved through the restaurant like a conductor. Every table, every plate, every person got her full attention. Zane had been to Michelin-starred restaurants in Paris. He had eaten at private chefs' tables that cost $5,000 a plate, but he had never seen anyone run a kitchen with this much love. By evening, the restaurant was empty. Zane was sitting on an overturned bucket in the back alley, staring at his hands. They were raw, red. The skin on his palms was peeling. Nora came outside. She sat on the step, didn't say anything for a moment. You coming back tomorrow? He looked at her. You think I'm going to quit? Most people do. First day is always the hardest. I'll be here. She studied his face. Why do you want this job that you hold dishes like they're made of? You hold dishes like they're made of glass. I thought I broke one because I was holding it too tight. She almost smiled. Almost. Why are you really here, Zane? He looked at the ground. He couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I'm here because I need to learn something. Learn what? How to be useful. She looked at him for a long time. Whatever she saw in his eyes, it was enough. Don't be late. She went back inside. Zane sat on that bucket for another few minutes. His back hurt. His hands hurt. He was exhausted in a way he had never experienced. And for the first time in his life, he felt like he was in the right place. She kept a letter in the bottom of her apron pocket. She never showed it to anyone. This is the part of the story you need to understand. Because Nora wasn't just a waitress. She was a woman carrying a weight that would have crushed most people. The scholarship letter from Howard University. She still had it years later. She kept it folded in a small envelope in the bottom drawer of her mother's old desk in the back office. She didn't look at it often, but she knew it was there. Some nights after closing and when Theo was asleep and the restaurant was dark and the city was quiet, she would take it out, unfold it, read the words. Dear Ms. Sinclair, we are pleased to offer you a full academic scholarship. She would read it once, fold it back, put it away, and then she would wash her face and go to sleep. She never cried about it. Crying felt like regret, and she refused to regret the choice she made because Theo was alive. Theo was thriving. Theo was about to graduate from Rice University with honors, and that was worth more than any degree. But sometimes late at night, she wondered, what would her life look like if she had gone? Would she be a doctor now? Would she be saving lives in a hospital somewhere? Would her mother understand? She knew the answer to the last question. Alara would have wanted her to go. Alara had worked her whole life so Nora could have options. But options don't mean anything when your 15-year-old brother is standing in your kitchen with tears in his eyes asking what happens to me now. Nora chose Theo, and she chose the restaurant, and she would choose them again 1,000 times. But the letter stayed in the drawer, a reminder of the road she didn't take. And she never told anyone about it. Not Jax, not Aunt Lila when she called from Ghana, not even Theo, especially not Theo. Because if Theo ever found out that his sister had turned down a full scholarship to raise him, he would carry that guilt forever. And Nora would rather carry the weight herself than put a single ounce of it on her brother's shoulders. That's the kind of woman Nora Sinclair was. The kind who carries the heaviest thing in the room and makes it look effortless. If this story is already pulling at you, stay with me, because what happened between Nora and Zane over the next 20 days, and what they both discovered on day 30, it's the kind of ending that changes how you see the people around you. He came to wash dishes and he stayed because of her. Day 5. Zane learned how to make fufu, not the right way, but Jax's way, which involved a lot of yelling and a wooden spoon that Jax wielded like a weapon. You're pounding like a man who's never worked with his hands. Jax shouted, I haven't. Then learn. The fufu doesn't care about your feelings. Nora watched from the doorway. She didn't help, but she didn't leave either. When Zane finally got it right, she nodded once. Not terrible, she said. From Nora. That was a standing ovation. Day 8. The fryer broke. Oil everywhere. Lunch rush in minutes. Nora was on the phone trying to find a repair person. Jax was managing the stove with one eye on the clock. The kitchen was chaos. Zane took off his apron, walked to the fryer, looked at it. The heating element is disconnected, he said. There's a loose wire near the thermostat. Nora put the phone down. How do you know that? I took an engineering class once. It wasn't entirely a lie. He had taken 3 semesters of mechanical engineering at MIT before switching to business because his father told him to. He fixed the fryer in minutes. Nora looked at it, tested it. Hot oil bubbled up perfectly. She looked at Zane. You're a very unusual dishwasher. I get that a lot. For the first time, she actually smiled at him. A real one. Small, quick, but real. And Zane felt something in his chest that all his father's money couldn't buy. Day 12. They were closing up. Just the two of them. Jax had left early because his daughter had a school play. Nora was counting the register. Zane was mopping the floor. Can I ask you something? He said. You can ask. I might not answer. The photograph behind the register. The woman with the wooden spoon. Who is she? Nora stopped counting. She looked at the photograph. A woman standing in front of the restaurant, young, radiant, holding a wooden spoon like a scepter. That's my mother, Nora said. She built this place, built it from nothing. She came to Houston from Kumasi with $400 and a suitcase full of recipes. She found this building when it was a storage unit, cleaned it out herself, painted the walls herself, opened the doors herself. She sounds incredible. She was. She died years ago. I'm sorry, Nora shrugged, not coldly, just practically the way someone shrugs when they've carried something so long it has become part of their posture. She's in everything here. The recipes, the colors, the way I fold the napkins. She taught me all of it. Zane leaned on the mop. Is that why you stay? Because of her? Nora looked at him. Really looked at him like she was deciding whether to let him into a room she kept locked. I stay because someone has to and because this place matters to me. To the neighborhood. Mr. Cordy eats here every day because his wife passed and he doesn't know how to cook, Mrs. Williams brings her grandkids on Saturdays because it reminds her of Sunday dinners in Accra. Jax supports his family on what he earns here. She closed the register. If I close, they lose all of that, so I stay. Zane was quiet for a long time. That's the most important thing anyone has ever said to me, he said. Nora laughed softly. Ah, you need to talk to more people. But she held his gaze for a moment longer than necessary, and something shifted between them. Day 17. They were sitting on the back step after closing. This had become their routine. Two people at the end of a long day sharing the quiet. Why do you never talk about yourself? Nora asked. There's not much to tell. That's a lie. Everyone has a story. Zane picked at a crack in the concrete. What if the story isn't very interesting? Dishwashers who fix fryers and take engineering classes and wear $300 shoes to work? That's a very interesting story. You noticed the shoes on day one? I noticed everything on day one. Zane smiled. Okay, ask me anything. Where are you from? Houston. Born and raised. Family? My father? Just us. Your mother? Zane was quiet. She passed when I was 19. Nora's expression changed, and the professional distance she always kept it softened just for a moment. I was 19 too, she said. When I lost mine, they looked at each other. Two people who had lost the same thing at the same age, who understood a grief that most people their age couldn't imagine. Does it get easier? Zane asked. No, you just get stronger and you learn to carry it differently. He nodded. He understood exactly what she meant. Zane? Yeah? I'm glad you didn't quit on day one. Me too. They sat in the quiet. The Houston night hummed around them. Somewhere down the street, music was playing. A dog barked. A car passed, and two people who were both hiding something sat side by side and felt less alone than they had in years. Day 22. Zane kissed Nora. It wasn't planned. It wasn't dramatic. They were in the kitchen after closing. She was teaching him how to season the stew base, her mother's recipe, and the one she never shared with anyone. More ginger, she said. And don't you dare use the powdered kind. Fresh ginger always, always. If my mother caught you using powdered ginger in her kitchen, she would haunt this building. Zane laughed. Nora laughed. And then they were standing very close to each other. And the laughter faded into something quieter. He kissed her. She kissed him back. When they pulled apart, she looked at him with those steady eyes. Don't lie to me, she said. Hey, whatever else happens, don't lie to me. His stomach dropped. I won't, he said. But he already was. He found it on day 25, and it changed everything he thought he knew. Zane was cleaning the back office. Nora had asked him to organize the storage shelves, boxes of receipts, old menus, tax files from years ago. In the bottom shelf, behind a stack of napkin order forms, he found a small wooden frame, dusty, face down. He picked it up, turned it over, and his hands went cold. It was a photograph of two women standing outside the restaurant, arms around each other, laughing. One of them was Nora Sinclair, Nora's mother. He recognized her from the photo behind the register. The other woman was his mother, Zane Archer, younger, healthier, before the cancer, standing in front of Aunt Lila's kitchen with her arm around Alara, laughing like they had known each other forever. On the back of the photograph in his mother's handwriting were the words Alara and Serena, 3rd Ward, best golf in Houston, best friend in the world. Zane sat down on the floor of that back office, the photograph in his trembling hands. His mother had known this place. His mother had loved this place. His mother had been friends with Nora's mother, and his father, Victor Archer, had sent him here knowing all of this. This wasn't just a test, it was a pilgrimage. His father had sent him to the one place where Serena's memory still lived, not to the kitchen where his mother had laughed and eaten and been herself. Not the billionaire's wife, not the socialite, just Serena. And the woman running that kitchen was the daughter of the woman his mother had loved like a sister. Zane put the photograph back. He didn't say a word to Nora, but that night he called his father for the first time in 25 days. Victor answered on the second ring. "You knew," Zane said. "You knew about Mom and Alara." Silence. You sent me here because of Mom." Victor's voice was quiet. "Your mother used to say that Aunt Lila's kitchen was the only place in Houston where she felt like herself before the money, before the company, before all of it. She and Alara would cook together on Sunday afternoons. Why didn't you tell me? Because you needed to discover it yourself. The way your mother discovered it, not through money, through being present. Dad, 5 more days. Zane, we see it through." Victor hung up. Zane sat in his car in the parking lot. It wasn't his real car. It was a 10-year-old Honda Civic that his father's driver, Solomon, had arranged for the 30 days. Rusted, reliable, invisible. He sat there for an hour thinking about his mother, about Alara, about Nora. 2 women who had been best friends, both gone too soon, both leaving behind children who carried their legacies in different ways. Zane had inherited billions. Nora had inherited a wooden spoon and a recipe book. And somehow, Nora was the richer one. The truth almost came out. And the person who almost broke it was the one she had sacrificed everything for. Day 29. One day before the black car, the lunch rush was heavier than usual. A church group had come in, 25 people, no reservation. Nora handled it the way she handled everything, with calm, steady, impossible grace. Zane was washing dishes faster than he ever had. Now his hands moved without thinking now. 29 days of muscle memory. The hot water didn't bother him anymore. The grease didn't make him flinch. He had become something he never expected. Useful. In the afternoon, the restaurant door opened. A young man walked in, tall, athletic, wearing a Rice University hoodie. He had Nora's eyes. Theo. Nora's face lit up. She came around the counter and hugged him so hard he stumbled backward. "Easy, easy. You're going to crack my ribs." "What are you doing here? You said you couldn't come until graduation." Theo grinned. "I finished my thesis early. Thought I'd surprise you." "Well, you did. Sit down. Let me feed you." She was different with Theo. Lighter, younger, like a version of herself that the restaurant and the responsibility had buried under years of work. Zane watched from the kitchen. He saw the way Nora looked at her brother. Pure love, pure pride. And the look of a woman who had given up everything and would do it again. Theo ate 3 plates of jollof rice and an entire side of kelawele. Between bites, he talked about his thesis, his internship offers, the engineering firm that wanted to hire him after graduation. "They offered me a starting salary that's more than—" He stopped, looked at the restaurant, "more than I expected." "You earned it," Nora said. "All of it. We earned it. You and me." Nora waved her hand. "I just cooked. You did the work." Theo put down his fork. His expression changed, serious. Nora, I know. The air shifted. Know what? About Howard? About the scholarship? Nora's face went still. Aunt Lila told me last month. She called from Ghana and she thought I already knew. Theo, you had a full ride pre-med and you turned it down to raise me. That's not. It is what happened. You gave up your entire future so I could have mine. Nora's eyes were filling. She shook her head. I didn't give up anything. I chose what mattered. I mattered more than medical school. You mattered more than everything. Theo's chin was trembling. This 22-year-old man about to graduate with honors, about to start his career, was sitting in his sister's restaurant with tears running down his face. I'm going to pay you back, he said. Every penny, every sacrifice, I'm going to make sure you stop. Nora took his hands. You don't owe me anything. You being here, yeah, you being who you are, that is the payback. That's all I ever wanted. They held each other. In the middle of the restaurant, the lunch customers pretended not to watch, but everyone was watching. And in the kitchen doorway, Zane stood with wet hands and a breaking heart because he had just heard the truth about the woman he loved. She had given up a full scholarship, a career, a future to raise her brother and keep her mother's restaurant alive. She had carried that secret for years, and she had never asked anyone for anything. Zane looked at the photograph he had hidden in his back pocket. His mother and Alara, two women who would have been proud of their children, and he made a decision. Tomorrow was day 30. His father's car would come. The test would be over. But Zane wasn't going back to his old life. He was going to tell Nora the truth, all of it. And he was terrified because she had said one thing to him that mattered more than any billionaire's ultimatum. Don't lie to me. And he had been lying to her for 29 days. The truth arrived in a black car, but the real reveal had nothing to do with money. Tuesday, day 30. The dinner rush hadn't started yet. The restaurant was quiet. Just a few regulars at the corner table. Mr. Cordy with his usual, a young couple sharing a plate of waki. Nora was wiping down the counter. Zane was in the kitchen. Jax had left early, his daughter's birthday. Zane's hands were shaking, not from the dishes, from what he was about to do. He took off his apron, washed his hands, walked to the front. Nora. She looked up, saw his face. Her smile faded. What's wrong? I need to tell you something, and you're going to be angry, and you have every right to be, but I need you to hear all of it. She set down the rag, crossed her arms. I'm listening. My name is Zane Archer. My father is Victor Archer. He owns Archer Capital Group. He's a billionaire. The restaurant went quiet. Mr. Cordy looked up from his soup. Nora didn't move. Her expression didn't change. She just stood there looking at him. He gave me 30 days, Zane continued. His voice was shaking. He said I needed to learn what it meant to work, to be nobody, to earn something without his name. So I was a test. No, you were never a test. The job was a test. The 30 days were a test. But you, he stepped closer. You were the thing I didn't expect and the thing I didn't deserve. You lied to me. Yes, for 29 days. Yes, I asked you not to lie to me. I looked you in the eyes and asked you. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm more sorry than I've ever been about anything. Nora's jaw was tight. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. She was holding it. Is everything else real? The conversations, the kiss, the nights on the back step, everything. every word, every moment. And the only lie was my name. Your name is the biggest thing about you. No, it's not. He reached into his back pocket, pulled out the photograph. He held it out. The photo of Serena and Alara standing outside this restaurant, arms around each other, laughing. Nora took it. Her hands were trembling now. Where did you get this? Your back office bottom shelf behind the napkin orders? Nora stared at the photograph, her mother young, laughing, and beside her a woman she didn't recognize. That woman, Zane said quietly, is my mother, Serena Archer. She and your mother were friends, best friends. They used to cook together in this kitchen on Sunday afternoons. Nora's hand flew to her mouth. My mother died when I was 19, Zane said, same as yours. Cancer. Before she passed, she used to tell my father about this restaurant, about her friend Alara. Because of her, because he wanted me to. Because of her, because he wanted me to find what my mother found in this place. Something real, something that money can't buy. He stepped closer. Nora, I found it. I found it in you. That's when they heard the car. The low rumble of an engine, expensive, quiet, the kind of sound that doesn't belong on a street with potholes and hand-painted signs. Zane closed his eyes. He's early. The car door opened. Victor Archer stepped out. He was wearing a dark suit, silver tie. His shoes were polished. His posture was perfect. He looked like what he was, a man who could buy the entire block with his pocket change. Solomon held the car door. Two assistants stood behind him. Victor walked to the restaurant door, opened it, stepped inside. Every head turned. Mr. Cordy dropped his spoon. The young couple stopped mid-bite. Nora stood behind the counter, tears still on her face, the photograph in her hand, Zane beside her. Victor looked at his son. Then he looked at Nora in his face. His face did something that Zane had not seen in years, not since Serena died. It softened. You look just like her, Victor said. His voice cracked on the word, her. Like who? Nora whispered. Your mother, Alara. She was the kindest woman I ever knew, after my Serena. Alara was the only one who treated us like family. He walked to the counter slowly like a man walking into a memory. Your mother fed us when we had nothing, before the company, before the money. When Serena and I were living in a one-bedroom apartment in Midtown and couldn't afford groceries, your mother would pack containers of food and leave them at our door. She never said a word about it. We never asked. It just appeared. Nora was sobbing now quietly. The way Alara took care of us. I'm ashamed to say it took me this long. He looked at Zane. But my son found you first. The restaurant was completely still. Victor reached inside his jacket. He pulled out an envelope. This is not charity, he said. This is a debt long overdue. He set the envelope on the counter. Inside is a deed. This building, it's yours, free and clear, no rent, no landlord. No one can ever take it from you. Nora shook her head. I can't accept. You can, because your mother would have accepted it for you, and because he pulled out a second envelope. This is an endowment for the restaurant, enough to run it for 20 years without worrying about a single bill. Mr. Archer, and this? He pulled out a third envelope, smaller, thinner. This is something else entirely. Nora opened it with shaking hands. It was a letter from Howard University. I made a call. Victor said your scholarship was declined years ago. They told me why. The admissions director remembered you. She said you were the most qualified applicant they had ever lost? Nora couldn't read the words. Her eyes were too blurred with tears. Zane read it for her. Full scholarship, reinstated medical program, fall semester. If you choose to accept the restaurant, erupted. Mr. Cordy was on his feet clapping. The young couple was crying. Jax's wife, who had just walked in to pick up food, was recording on her phone with tears streaming down her face. Nora looked at Victor, at Zane, at the photograph of their mothers. I can't leave the restaurant. Zane took her hand. You don't have to. We'll figure it out. Jax can run the kitchen. Your brother is graduating. You've given everyone else their future. Nora, it's time for yours. But your mother told you to live. Remember, not just survive, live. Nora broke. She didn't break the way powerful people break, with drama and noise. She broke quietly. The way a dam breaks when the water has been pressing against it for years, and someone finally says, you can let go now. She cried into Zane's chest. He held her. His father stood beside them, and for the first time in years, Victor Archer was crying too. And because in this tiny restaurant with its mismatched chairs and handwritten menu, the promise two mothers had made to each other was finally being kept. Not with money, not with power, with love. The kind that crosses generations, the kind that waits, the kind that shows up in a black car on day 30 and changes everything. Later that night, after the restaurant had closed, after Victor had gone, after the papers had been signed and the tears had dried, Zane and Nora sat on the back step. Their step. You lied to me for 29 days, Nora said. I did. You washed dishes for minimum wage when you could have bought the whole building. I could have. You kissed me while hiding a $2 billion secret, $2.4 billion. But yes, she looked at him. Why? Because I fell in love with you on day 8 when you didn't thank me for fixing the fryer. You just said not terrible. And I thought, this is the most honest person I've ever met. That's a strange reason to fall in love. My mother always said, the best people don't need to impress you. They just need to be real. Nora was quiet for a moment. Your mother sounds a lot like mine. I think that's why they were friends. Nora leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm still mad at you. I know. It might take a while. I'll wait. You'll wait. Nora, I just spent 30 days washing dishes and mopping floors and getting yelled at by Jax about my foo-foo technique. I think I can handle waiting. She laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from a place so deep it surprises even the person laughing. And they sat there on the back step of a tiny restaurant in Houston's 3rd Ward. Two people who had been hiding from each other. Two people who had found each other in the most unlikely place. A billionaire's son who learned that the most valuable thing in the world isn't money. And a waitress who learned that carrying everything alone isn't strength. It's just loneliness, wearing a brave face. Their mothers had been best friends. Now their children had found something even deeper. And it started with a dishwashing job, a 30-day test, and a woman who said, don't lie to me. He lied. She forgave. And they started over together. Some people inherit fortunes, and others inherit aprons. Victor Archer gave his son 30 days to find what money couldn't buy. Zane found it in a restaurant with mismatched chairs. He found it in a woman who gave up her dreams so her brother could have his. He found it in a photograph of two mothers who loved each other before the money came and after. It didn't matter. Nora didn't need Zane's billions. She didn't need the building deed or the endowment or even the scholarship. What she needed and what she had needed for years was someone to say, "You've carried enough. Let me help." That's what love is. Not the kind in movies. Not the kind that arrives in a limousine with roses and a ring. The kind that shows up in a dirty apron with pruned hands and says, "I'm not going anywhere." Zane's mother was right. It doesn't matter what you have. It matters who you are when you have nothing. And Nora, the girl with nothing but a recipe book and a promise, she was the richest person he had ever met. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because every story we tell carries a lesson. And the next one, it might be the one that reminds you the most valuable things in your life were never bought. They were built by the people who loved you when you had nothing to offer. But in the heart of this poignant tale, where Zane Archer, the heir to billions, traded luxury for a dishwashing apron in a humble Houston restaurant, lies a profound life lesson. True worth isn't measured in fortunes or status, but in the quiet sacrifices we make for love and the unbreakable bonds that transcend time and wealth. Zane, thrust into anonymity by his father's ultimatum, discovered humility amid suds and steam, falling deeply for Nora Sinclair, a woman who had forsaken her dreams of medical school to preserve her mother's legacy and raise her brother Theo. Their story unfolds like a tapestry woven from loss and redemption. Two mothers, Serena and Ilara, once best friends, sharing laughter in that very kitchen, leaving behind children destined to heal each other's wounds. Nora's unwavering devotion, carrying the weight of unspoken regrets for years without complaint, evokes a raw ache in our souls, reminding us how often we overlook the heroes in everyday aprons, the ones who choose family over fame, community over comfort. Zane's transformation from entitled son to genuine partner mirrors our own potential for growth. He learned that pruned hands and honest toil forge deeper connections than any bank account. Yet, it's Nora's quiet strength that tugs at the heartstrings hardest, showing that real richness blooms from selflessness, turning loneliness into legacy. This narrative stirs tears of recognition, urging us to honor those who've lifted us silently, to embrace vulnerability, and to seek authenticity in a material world. Imagine if we all paused to appreciate the Noras in our lives, the unsung pillars who've given everything so we could thrive. If this lesson resonates, igniting memories of your own sacrifices or unexpected loves, share your story in the comments below. Let's build a community of heartfelt tales. And for more inspiring journeys that reveal life's hidden treasures, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Your next emotional awakening awaits.